Some families pass down heirlooms, others pass down legacies of hard work and faith. But in Charlotte, one family has passed down something far darker, a pattern of crime that spans generations, the Brown family. And at the center of it today stands DeCarlos Brown Jr., the man responsible for taking Irina Zarutskaya's life. But here's the truth. He's not an outlier. He's the latest product of a family tree poisoned by criminal roots. Neighbors and police records tell the story clearly. The Browns didn't just stumble into trouble. They lived in it. For decades, arrests piled up, burglary, drugs, assaults. In every branch of the family, you find the same thing, violence and lawlessness. What does that say about the system that let them keep walking free? DeCarlos Jr. grew up watching his relatives in and out of jail. He saw that the consequences never stuck. The revolving door of so-called justice spun endlessly. And under weak Democratic leadership in Charlotte, repeat offenders like him got second chances, third chances, 10th chances. Each time another innocent life was put at risk. Think about it. If a family is this steeped in crime, why weren't they stopped long ago? Why was DeCarlos Jr. still on the streets, free to destroy lives? That's not just his failure. It's the failure of a political system that chose leniency over safety. And the deeper we dig, the uglier the truth becomes. Because DeCarlos Jr. didn't create this chaos alone. His family laid the groundwork long before he pulled the trigger. The Browns have been a menace to Charlotte for years. And what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. The Brown family name has been whispered in Charlotte's courtrooms for decades. Judges knew it. Prosecutors dreaded it. Police officers rolled their eyes when they saw it appear on a fresh case file. Because it always meant the same thing. Another arrest, another waste of taxpayer money, and another criminal slipping back into the streets. DeCarlos Brown Jr. is just the headline today, but his father and uncles carried the same reputation long before him. Court records trace their history through assaults, robberies, and drug trafficking charges. This wasn't petty trouble. This was organized dysfunction. Sons following fathers, brothers covering for brothers, and an entire clan learning that crime pays when the system is too soft to push back. The Browns treated jail like a second home. And each time, Democratic leaders in Mecklenburg County acted as if rehabilitation would fix the problem. Slap on the wrist sentences, probation instead of prison, diversion programs that sent criminals back into neighborhoods without accountability. And what happened? Innocent residents paid the price while the Browns got bolder. Ask yourself, how many warnings does a community need before it demands real protection? How many victims does it take before voters realize that weak-on-crime policies don't just fail, they kill? The truth is, the Brown family flourished because they knew there would be no serious crackdown. And that's why DeCarlos Jr. could rise unchecked. He inherited not just his family's name, but their criminal playbook. And if you think his father's record was bad, wait until you see how deep his mother, his siblings, and even his cousins were entangled in this same cycle of lawlessness. The web stretches wider than most people can imagine. DeCarlos Brown Jr. didn't just grow up in a rough neighborhood. He grew up in a criminal household. His mother's record isn't spotless either. Reports link her to fraud cases and repeated brushes with law enforcement. While she may not have wielded a weapon like her son, her choices reinforce the same lesson. The rules don't apply to the Browns. If money could be scammed, if benefits could be abused, they took the shortcut. Then there are the siblings. One brother, arrested for drug distribution before he was even 21. Another cousin, tied to gang activity in Charlotte's West Side. Police blotters read like a Brown family scrapbook. It's not coincidence. It's culture, a learned behavior, passed down through whispers at the dinner table and reinforced by a city government too timid to confront it. Imagine growing up surrounded by that. Every time DeCarlos Jr. saw a relative dodge real punishment, it was a green light. Every time a Democrat-backed DA chose restorative justice instead of prison time, it was an endorsement. And when prosecutors brag about shrinking prison populations while neighborhoods like East Charlotte drown in violence, who benefits? Families like the Browns. Law-abiding citizens pay the price. Mothers afraid to let their kids walk home from school. Small business owners who lock their doors early because they know thieves face no consequences. And all the while, Families like the Browns learned that crime isn't punished, it's tolerated. But here's the twist. As bad as the Browns' record looks so far, it's not just about scattered arrests. What ties them together is a consistent thread. Every branch of this family has left a trail of victims. And the most chilling part? That trail doesn't end with DeCarlos Jr. The Browns didn't just dip into crime, they built a dynasty on it. Take DeCarlos Jr.'s father, for example. Arrested multiple times for violent offenses, he became a fixture in local jail logs. Assault charges, possession of illegal firearms, even a string of burglaries that terrorized families in East Charlotte. Each time, prosecutors talked tough, but the sentences? Suspended, reduced, negotiated down until they meant nothing. Uncles and cousins followed the same path. One was caught running a chop shop, stripping stolen cars for parts. Another served time for armed robbery, only to be released early, thanks to overcrowding, policies that Democratic leaders in North Carolina bragged about as cost-saving reforms. These weren't isolated bad apples. They were the Brown family business. Now think about what that does to a kid like DeCarlos Jr. He grew up watching family members wear criminal records like badges of honor. They walked out of courtrooms laughing, convinced the law was just a game. And in Charlotte's climate of leniency, they weren't wrong. Republicans warned for years that soft on crime policies would embolden repeat offenders. They said criminals would feel untouchable, and the Browns proved them right. For every conviction, there was another early release. For every victim, another Brown back on the street. And Charlotte's leadership did nothing to stop the cycle. So when DeCarlos Jr. pulled the trigger, was it really a surprise? Or was it the predictable outcome of a family shaped by lawlessness and a city government too weak to enforce order? The Browns weren't just tolerated, they were enabled. And the deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. This family has thrived because Democrats let them. By the time DeCarlos Brown Jr. was a teenager, the Brown family reputation was already written in police reports. Teachers whispered about his family background. Neighbors locked their doors when they saw the Browns gather. Everyone knew trouble followed them. And yet the system kept looking the other way. DeCarlos Jr. himself racked up juvenile charges, larceny, fighting, drugs. Each time, the courts treated him as a youth in need of guidance. But what kind of guidance did he get? He went home to a family where violence and theft weren't condemned. They were expected. Judges talked about second chances. But what happens when a kid burns through his second, third, and fourth chances before turning 18? It's no wonder he graduated from petty theft to armed robbery. And it wasn't just him. Court records show cousins caught with stolen firearms, a half-brother charged in a home invasion, aunts and uncles facing welfare fraud accusations. The Browns didn't just break laws, they lived above them, because in Charlotte, Democratic officials let them. Ask yourself, if this much crime came out of one family, why weren't they on law enforcement's radar as a priority? Why wasn't there a serious crackdown years ago? The answer is simple. Soft justice and political cowardice. Instead of protecting communities, leaders bragged about reducing prison populations. Instead of cracking down on gangs, they prioritized equity in sentencing. And families like the Browns thrived. But here's where the story darkens even further. Because while DeCarlos Jr. built his own rap sheet, his extended family was weaving into Charlotte's gang networks, dragging the Browns into something far more dangerous than petty crime. The Browns weren't just a family of small-time crooks. They were tied into Charlotte's gang scene, a network that's poisoned communities for decades. Police reports link cousins of DeCarlos Jr. to drug rings operating on the city's west side, where heroin and fentanyl destroyed lives. Others ran with violent cliques known for drive-by shootings and intimidation. The Browns weren't just participants, they were fixtures. Every arrest told the same story: guns, drugs, stolen goods. And yet, time after time, charges vanished or melted down in plea deals. Liberal prosecutors defended it as keeping dockets clear. But clear dockets meant crowded morgues. Citizens buried loved ones while the Browns walked free. Think about what that teaches a family. If you can deal heroin and still make it home for dinner, why stop? If you can assault someone and get probation, why change? The Browns learned the rules early. In Charlotte, crime had no cost. Democrats in power turned public safety into an afterthought. and families like the Browns filled the void. Republicans warned about this exact outcome. They said leniency would fuel gangs, that refusing to lock up violent offenders would embolden entire families of criminals. The Browns became proof. They weren't reformed, they were reinforced. Each generation saw the system bend, and they pushed harder. And DeCarlos Jr., he grew up in the middle of it all, surrounded by relatives flashing gang signs, dealing poison, bragging about time served. He was never steered away. He was pulled in deeper. By the time he reached adulthood, he wasn't just another Brown in the cycle. He was the most dangerous one yet. By adulthood, DeCarlos Brown Jr. had become the inevitable product of his environment. Multiple arrests, gun charges, a reputation among police as a ticking time bomb. And yet, how many times did the courts send him right back out? Over and over, he walked free. The Brown family curse had claimed another generation, and Charlotte's justice system handed him the keys. It's important to see the pattern. His father's assaults, his mother's fraud, his siblings' drug dealing, his cousins' gang ties, and then DeCarlos Jr., the one who escalated it all. The Browns weren't misunderstood. They weren't victims of circumstance. They were predators who knew the law wouldn't stop them. And why wouldn't they think that? In Democrat-run Mecklenburg County, bail reform meant violent offenders posting pennies to get out. Judges lectured about equity while ignoring the equity of safety for law-abiding families. The Browns were shielded by policies designed to give endless second chances, no matter how many lives they endangered. The community saw it. Neighbors complained, warning police that the Browns were spiraling out of control. But their voices were drowned out by politicians more interested in social justice headlines than actual justice. And the cost of that failure was measured in blood. The lesson is stark. When government refuses to enforce the law, criminals don't back down. They multiply. They grow bolder. And families like the Browns take root, generation after generation, until tragedy becomes inevitable. But the final twist, this story isn't just about one family in Charlotte. It's about what happens across America when weak leaders let crime fester unchecked. And the Browns show us exactly where that road leads. The Browns are not an isolated case. They are the blueprint for what happens when a city trades accountability for excuses. For decades, Charlotte leaders allowed a family steeped in crime to operate without fear. The result? A murdered woman, a devastated community, and a family name now synonymous with failure. Failure of parenting, failure of culture, and most of all, failure of policy. DeCarlos Brown Jr. didn't appear out of nowhere. He was raised in a system that chose leniency over law, ideology over order. His family's history, fraud, drugs, assaults, robberies, wasn't hidden. It was written in open records for anyone to see. But politicians ignored the warnings. They treated the Browns as to be managed instead of predators to be stopped. And here's the hard truth. This will keep happening unless America changes course. Communities don't need softer judges. They don't need more reform that protects criminals. They need leaders willing to lock up repeat offenders and keep them there. They need policies that put the rights of victims above the rights of violent families like the Browns. Republicans have pushed for stronger sentencing, tougher bail laws, and real accountability. Democrats in cities like Charlotte have resisted every step of the way. And ordinary people, the law-abiding, the tax-paying, the parents and children just trying to live in peace, are the ones who pay the price. The Browns stand as a warning, a criminal dynasty allowed to thrive, ending in tragedy. The question is, will leaders finally wake up? Or will more families like the Browns keep tearing apart communities until voters demand a return to law and order?